It started off like any other weekend afternoon. The sun was slipping through the blinds in soft golden stripes, the house quiet except for the gentle hum of the ceiling fan. I had just come back from a long, stressful week at work and my husband, Derek, said he had something special planned to help me unwind. He'd recently taken a short massage course online, just a hobby, nothing serious, and he offered to give me a massage at home. I didn't think much of it at first. I was actually touched by the gesture. It seemed sweet, thoughtful, like something couples in love still do for each other when life gets busy. We set up in the bedroom. He dimmed the lights, lit a couple of lavender-scented candles, and played soft instrumental music on his phone. I smiled to myself as I lay down on the bed, thinking maybe this was his way of reconnecting with me. Things had been a little distant between us lately. Not in a loud, dramatic way, but in those quiet silences that creep in when you're both too tired to talk at the end of the day. I missed how we used to be, and this small act felt like him trying to bring that back. As he started massaging my shoulders and neck, I closed my eyes and tried to relax. His hands moved with surprising confidence, more skilled than I expected from a few online videos. At first, it felt nice. Comfortable. Familiar. But then, something shifted. His touch, while still gentle, began to linger a little too long in places that felt too personal. It wasn't aggressive or forceful. It wasn't overt. But it was different. And not in a way I could easily explain out loud. It felt like the line between care and desire was starting to blur. My body tensed even as I tried to convince myself I was overthinking it. I told myself it was just my imagination, that maybe I was being paranoid. But something deep inside me felt unsettled. The way he whispered, "Just relax," felt loaded. The way his fingers trailed, not with intention to soothe but to explore, made me question what was really going on in his mind. I didn't say anything in that moment. I just lay there, trying to process the emotions swirling inside me, confusion, discomfort, and something else I couldn't quite name yet. It wasn't until later that night, when I walked past the bathroom and saw something on his phone screen he hadn't meant for me to see, that everything began to make sense and fall apart. That massage wasn't just about me. It was connected to something bigger. Something he had been hiding. And in that moment, I realized the intimacy I thought we were rebuilding was already broken by a betrayal I never saw coming. But I didn't confront him. Not yet. Because I needed to be sure. I needed to know the truth behind what I felt in that room. And what I uncovered next changed everything. I didn't sleep much that night. My mind kept playing back every second of the massage, his tone, his touch, the odd silence between us. It felt like something had shifted, and not in a good way. And then there was that image on his phone. It was quick, just a glance, but enough to freeze me in place. It looked like a message. A picture. From someone I didn't recognize. But it wasn't the content alone, it was the timing. The screen lit up while he was in the bathroom, right after that massage, and the way he quickly flipped the phone over when he returned. It said more than any words could. The next morning, I pretended like everything was fine. I smiled. I made coffee. I asked how he slept. He responded casually, like nothing had changed. Maybe he thought I hadn't seen it. Or maybe he was just that good at hiding things. Either way, I knew I couldn't ask him, not yet. Not without knowing more. Over the next few days, I started paying closer attention. I noticed little things I hadn't before. His phone was always on silent now. He took it with him everywhere, even into the shower. He'd step out to take a call more often, sometimes in the garage, sometimes outside. When I asked who it was, he always had an answer, but the way his eyes didn't meet mine said otherwise. The small lies added up faster than I could keep track. And the more I watched, the more I realized this wasn't new. It was just new to me. I started questioning everything. How long had it been going on? Who was she? Was it someone from his massage class? Was that why he suddenly took an interest in learning how to touch someone more intimately? My chest felt heavy every time I thought about it. The betrayal wasn't just physical. It was emotional. It was in the lies, in the pretending, in the way he touched me like I was her. I wanted to scream, but I stayed quiet. I needed more proof. I started checking his schedule, watching his habits, noting the times when things didn't add up. And every new clue only made the truth harder to ignore. I didn't know where this would lead. But deep down, I had a feeling that what I'd find next would hurt more than anything I'd already seen. A few days later, while Derek was in the shower, I finally gave in to the uneasy feeling that had been growing inside me. His phone was on the dresser, screen down, just like always. I told myself I wasn't the kind of person who snooped, but trust had already cracked, and something deep in my gut told me that the truth was hiding behind that screen. I picked it up with trembling hands. No passcode. That surprised me. Maybe he thought I'd never look. Or maybe he wanted me to find something, some twisted way of coming clean without having to actually admit anything. The first thing I noticed was a name I didn't recognize, Mel. The messages weren't overly explicit, but they were intimate. Full of inside jokes, late-night thoughts, and photos that weren't suggestive on their own, but sent with just the right words to make them feel personal. Too personal. She said things like, "I can still feel your hands," and "last time was better than I imagined." My stomach turned. That massage he gave me? It wasn't a first-time experience. He had practiced, on her. I put the phone down before I could see more. I felt sick. But I couldn't confront him. Not yet. I needed to understand the whole picture. Who was this woman? How did they meet? And why, out of all things, was he doing this now? We weren't perfect, but I thought we were still in this together. Later that day, I visited my friend Claire. She and Derek never really got along, but she'd always been honest with me, even when it hurt. I told her bits and pieces, carefully avoiding names or direct accusations. But she caught on quickly. She leaned in and said something that stopped me cold. "Are you sure it's just one woman?" Her words echoed in my mind all night. That hadn't even crossed my mind. And that's when the subtlest shift happened. I started to see Derek differently. Not just as someone who lied, but as someone who had been living a separate life right under my nose. Every night he stayed late at work, every time he was too tired for conversation, every small disconnect now felt like a clue. My world was slowly unraveling, and the man I thought I knew, my husband, my partner, was becoming a stranger. And yet, I still didn't know the full truth. Not yet. But I was getting closer. A week later, I did something I never imagined I'd do. I followed him. He said he was heading out for a late meeting with a client, something he claimed was a last-minute project that couldn't wait. I smiled and nodded, pretending to believe him. But the moment he pulled out of the driveway, I grabbed my keys and waited just long enough to avoid suspicion before driving after him. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely think. I wasn't sure what I hoped to find, or feared to. But I knew that whatever he was hiding, tonight might finally expose it. I stayed 2 cars behind him, careful not to get too close. He drove across town, past his office building, and into a quiet neighborhood I didn't recognize. I pulled over when he turned onto a side street and waited. Minutes passed like hours. Then I saw his car parked in front of a small house. The porch light was on. And then the door opened. A woman stepped out. She wasn't what I expected, no flashy clothes, no dramatic entrance. Just jeans, a sweater, and a smile that looked too comfortable. Too familiar. She hugged him, casually, like it was normal. Like they did this all the time. And then they went inside. Together. I sat there in my car, frozen. My hands were gripping the steering wheel, but I couldn't move. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just watched the house, hoping, maybe foolishly, that he'd come back out and tell me this wasn't what it looked like. But deep down, I already knew. This was more than a mistake. This was a routine. Everything I thought I knew about our marriage, every anniversary, every inside joke, every quiet evening on the couch, suddenly felt like a lie. And what hurt the most was the ease of it all. He didn't look guilty. He didn't hesitate. It was like he had a whole second life, and I was just a background character in it. I stayed there for over an hour, heart racing, trying to figure out what to do next. I thought about storming in, yelling, making a scene. But something stopped me. I wasn't ready. Not yet. I needed answers, not just emotions. I needed to know who she was, and how long this had been going on. And just as I was about to leave, something happened that made everything even worse. Just as I turned the ignition, thinking I'd seen enough for one night, I caught movement in the rearview mirror. A car was pulling into the driveway just across from where I was parked. I didn't think much of it, until I saw the driver get out. It was Claire. My friend. The one I had confided in. The one who told me to be careful, who asked if I was sure it was just one woman. And now here she was, walking straight toward the same house Derek had just entered. My heart stopped. At first, I thought maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe she knew someone who lived here. But the way she moved, without hesitation, told a different story. She didn't knock. She used her own key. I sat there in stunned silence, unable to believe what I was seeing. She let herself in. No hesitation. No pause. Like she belonged there. I leaned back in my seat, trying to breathe through the shock. Questions came rushing in faster than I could process them. What was Claire doing there? Was she part of this somehow? Was she seeing Derek too? Or had she known about this the entire time? That night, all the warning signs from our conversations came flooding back. The way she never liked Derek, how quickly she picked up on my suspicions, how she tried to steer me away from certain questions. Had she been protecting me, or protecting him? My stomach twisted. If Claire was involved, it meant this wasn't just about betrayal in marriage. It was betrayal in friendship too. I stayed another hour, barely blinking, watching the windows. At one point, I saw a shadow pass in front of the curtains. Laughter followed. Muffled, but real. That was the moment I realized something much deeper was happening. This wasn't a fling. This was a network of lies. A setup that involved people close to me, people I trusted. And it had been happening right under my nose. I drove home in silence. My hands shook on the wheel the entire way. I couldn't cry. I couldn't feel anything except the weight of not knowing how far the betrayal went. I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking back to every conversation I'd had with Claire, every smile Derek gave me while lying straight to my face. Every memory felt tainted now. The next morning, I made a decision. I wasn't going to ask him questions anymore. I was going to find the truth myself. No more guessing. No more waiting. I needed evidence. Real answers. Not just for closure, but because I had a growing suspicion that this went deeper than infidelity. Something about the way Claire entered that house didn't sit right. Something told me this was only the beginning. And the truth I was about to uncover would change everything I thought I knew about my marriage, and the people I thought I could trust. The next evening, I told Derek I was going to stay at my sister's for a couple of nights. He didn't question it. Just nodded, said okay, drive safe, and went back to checking his phone. That confirmed what I already knew, he wasn't worried about losing me. Because in his mind, he already had someone else. Maybe more than one. But instead of leaving, I stayed close. I had a friend, someone Derek didn't know, set up a camera across from the house I followed him to. Discreet. Just enough to get what I needed. I waited 2 days, then reviewed the footage. I was prepared to see him and the woman I saw before. But I wasn't prepared for what I actually found. There was footage of Claire arriving twice. Once alone, and once with Derek. But it was the third person that made my blood run cold. A man I didn't recognize, maybe in his 30s, also came and went from that house. They weren't just meeting for romance. There were papers exchanged, hushed arguments on the porch, and at one point, Derek even seemed tense. Nervous. Not like a man cheating. More like a man being controlled. I had the footage enhanced, sent to a friend who used to work in security. What we uncovered blew everything wide open. That man? He wasn't just some stranger. His name was Ian, a former coworker of Claire's, who had once been fired over an HR complaint involving Derek. My friend dug deeper. Turns out, Ian had been trying to start a small business but needed funding. Claire, Derek, and this other woman, Mel, had been helping him in exchange for a cut of the business. But there was more. Claire wasn't sleeping with Derek. She was manipulating him. Derek had been involved, yes, but not in the way I'd assumed. The messages I saw from Mel were real, but Claire had set them up. She orchestrated the entire thing to blackmail Derek after getting involved in his massage class idea. The woman I thought he was cheating with? She was hired. Paid to lure him, to trap him. Claire had looped in people from their old circle to make it all look real. When I finally confronted Derek, I expected lies. But he broke down. Admitted everything. He'd cheated once, yes, but after that, Claire had found out and used it to control him. The massage, the secrecy, the late-night meetings, he was trying to untangle himself but didn't know how. He thought if I found out, he'd lose everything. So instead, he just kept lying. It didn't excuse what he did. But for the first time, the pieces made sense. I wasn't just a woman betrayed by her husband, I was caught in a web spun by someone I called a friend. And just when I thought it was over, I got a message. From an unknown number. You have no idea how deep this goes. Walk away while you still can. And that's when I realized, the story wasn't over yet. I stared at the message on my phone for a long time, heart pounding. It didn't have a name. No photo. Just that chilling line, you have no idea how deep this goes. Walk away while you still can. It felt like something out of a movie, not real life. But this wasn't fiction. This was my marriage, my friends, my entire world, turned upside down. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. The message said it all. There were still people protecting something, maybe money, secrets, reputations. But I had already been through too much to turn back now. Over the next few days, I met with a lawyer. I showed her everything, texts, footage, the confession from Derek. She listened carefully and told me I had options. I wasn't just dealing with infidelity. There were signs of manipulation, possibly fraud. Derek's name was tied to accounts I never knew about. Claire, it turned out, had opened a small consulting firm and funneled money through it under Derek's name, using his massage startup as cover. As painful as it was, I made my decision. I filed for divorce. Derek cried when I told him. He begged me not to. Promised he would make things right. But the damage was already done. Not just from the cheating, but from the lies he let fester. He may have been a pawn in someone else's game, but he never once warned me. He let me feel crazy, paranoid, unloved. That wasn't something I could forgive. I cut off all ties with Claire, of course. She never reached out, never apologized. I think she knew the line she crossed couldn't be undone. And part of me still wonders, why me? Why my marriage? Maybe she thought I'd never dig deep enough. Maybe she didn't care who got hurt as long as she got what she wanted. But I wasn't the same woman I was weeks ago. I had learned to listen to my instincts. To fight for the truth, even when it hurts. In the end, I moved out of the house. started fresh. I went back to school part-time, focused on work, rebuilt my life piece by piece. Some days are still hard. Trust doesn't come easy now. But I've found peace in knowing that I didn't stay silent. I didn't accept what was being hidden. I uncovered the truth, even when it broke my heart. So if you're watching this and feeling that quiet unease in your relationship, don't ignore it. What he did while massaging me felt too personal, and it truly changed everything. But it also opened my eyes. To deception, to betrayal, and to the strength I never knew I had. This wasn't just a story about infidelity. It was about trusting your gut, seeing past the surface, and realizing that sometimes the people you trust the most are the ones you need to question the hardest. And while the pain was real, so was the growth that came after. 29.